All right. We are live. We are live right now across multiple platforms. We are live on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Thank you if you are watching this. I don't know that we have any people watching. I did not promote this live stream, but I am very excited about this live stream. I'm going to be doing it with a very dear, close friend, soulmate even, Andrew Pitkin. Welcome to the Ed Woodstock channel. Thanks for tuning in, and welcome Andrew Pitkin to the channel. Thanks for dropping in and having this talk with me.
Sure. Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah. Today we just decided to start with a very basic, common conversation about something that is very familiar to me and familiar to you, I know, because we've discussed it on multiple occasions. But we're going to talk about meditation. What is meditation? What is the nature of meditation? Is it prayer? Is it relaxation? Is it some hippy-dippy, esoteric, strange, religious phenomenon? Or is it just deep breathing? What is meditation? We're going to talk about meditation. We're going to talk about what it is, what it isn't. And we'll just talk about our personal experiences with meditation. And really, the hope for this whole conversation and this live stream is for anybody that's out there and interested in meditation, especially men who maybe tend to think things like yoga and meditation are more centered in the female realm. It's a good opportunity for men to understand the nature of meditation, what it is, and how it can be a useful tool in their lives. And that's why I titled it Mansplaining Meditation, because it may not be as flowery as some of the yoga studios might explain it, but we're going to explain it in a way that hopefully makes sense to men out there. And then you can decide if it's a useful tool that you'd like to explore or experience or not. So, Andy, do you mind maybe telling me maybe what is the first time that you can remember either hearing about, being exposed to, being taught, shown, seeing somebody meditate, or explaining it? Or like, when was the first time in your life you can kind of remember the age when you first heard about meditation? And at that point, what did you understand it to be?
I think probably as far as meditation goes, it was mentioned to me probably high school. I was more familiar with prayer, like, because my parents were churchgoers. So prayer was kind of in the forefront. Meditation was kind of just something that I heard about, but to actually experience, it was probably like a high school retreat where we did like a guided meditation where someone was kind of leading us through, some visuals, some imagination into a place, a safe place to kind of, I think, open up and also access maybe how our body felt, like if we had pain in our body or any feeling in specific parts of our body. It was kind of a demonstration, I think, and more of a intro to meditation. But yeah, that's about when I first remember it is, early high school or late, probably middle school. So,
and I find that interesting in itself because sometimes I'll even use prayer and meditation synonymously. And the reason I do that is for a very specific reason. I also grew up traditionally like in this Roman Catholic, blue-collar, working-class neighborhood. And I was an altar boy, and prayer was everything from the Our Father to the Hail Mary and the, Stations of the Cross, the pomp and circumstance, the ceremony, if you will. And it's all very specific for a specific belief. And prayer can sometimes seem very specific because it's specific words in that prayer. In some ways, other people might pray more, I don't know how you'd call it, freestyle, where they might just have this kind of conversation with the divine. But as far as prayer itself, like I'm going to say a prayer, it would be a specific combination of words. Can you talk to me a little bit about what you feel the difference between prayer and meditation is?
I think there's certainly definitely some overlaps. Prayer for me, just from my experience, was more like taught specific prayers along with rituals in some cases. From like just growing up and my parents being Catholic, we actually would pray around the table. and there was 5 of us and my parents, so 7 total. So prayer was like time consuming as well, because we'd go around the table almost like you would maybe at Thanksgiving, and everybody would get a chance to speak, which was good as a child. I think it's taught us something, a value, that we're all valuable, that we get a chance to speak. But yeah, so it was time consuming with 7 people and before every dinner. And then, of course, if we ever had guests in the house, those guests were given a chance to pray for something as well. The one thing that sticks out for me, and this is where I'm going to get into intention a little bit, because I think that's one of the overlaps with meditation and prayer, is it does come down to intention, is that my mom had always prayed that our family would grow together. That was kind of how she phrased it, was that we all grow together, like closer, I think was the intent there. But yeah, so that would be, I would say, like prayer and meditation, there is a space of intention in most cases. Although I do find the shower meditative, and I wouldn't say I'm necessarily thinking, oh, I'm going to meditate now, but it does feel like meditation sometimes. When I'm in the shower, I sometimes have some of my aha moments, the eureka moments. So, and as far as meditation goes, I feel there's a lot of different ways to meditate. Obviously, there's a lot of ways to pray. So there's different types. But yeah, this is a hard one, because how they're different, I think. So first of all, there's the internal and there's the external. So there's the praying for something for yourself, and then there's a praying for others, and it's more maybe existential, right? But when you're dealing with meditation, it can be the same. It can be more focused on inside body, or it could be a projection of power or light or love. And so I think both prayer and meditation probably are equally powerful, and I don't want to say necessary, but they definitely complement our lives here while we're here. So
when you talk about
yeah.
intention,
Yeah,
you talk about almost this idea of like people might pray for something, and we can also, I think it might be wise to at this point even introduce what it means to use one of these popular catchphrases of that have been very popular over the past decade, since the New Age kind of era has been rolled in.
mm-hmm.
A lot of the New Age gurus talk a lot about things like the secret and manifesting. Can you maybe even talk a little bit about, because you were talking about the internal and the external, I think that's kind of a crucial point when we talk about prayer, meditation, manifestation, even intention.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about what it means to have an intention, to ask for something, or to ask for something that helps you to become the person that can actually create the things you're looking for. Let me break that down a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might pray for riches, or some people might pray for, the Lord to take away pain.
Mm-hmm.
But we all know that everybody who desires greater affluence on some level, more comfort, and everybody desires to have their pain taken away. It's very natural.
Mm-hmm.
The desire for comfort, the aversion of pain. But then other people will talk about this idea of like, give me the strength and the knowledge to become successful, or give me the strength to deal with the adversity in my life. Not take it away, but give me the strength to deal with it. So there's this kind of internal versus external, meaning let me pray to remove the obstacle that is creating suffering, or let me pray that I have the strength and the fortitude to face, handle, manage, and mitigate that suffering in a way that gives me greater strength. And so is this idea of intentionality behind one where the praying makes the individual more powerful, and one where the praying is this third-party deity that comes in and intervenes in the external world to open up pathways or offer some kind of material reward. And I think, I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong. I tend to pray or meditate for the latter, meaning I tend to ask more for the strength to deal with life and accept the life the way that it is, as opposed to praying for the things that I actually like want or desire. So if that makes sense, can you talk a little bit about what it means to even be in the realm of manifestation versus prayer versus meditation, and the idea of intent behind creating the life we want, and whether that comes from a third party giving it to us or whether it comes from our ability to develop this strength, the mental, emotional, spiritual fortitude necessary to intentionally create a life that we love, and so we have the things we desire.
Yeah. I think as far as differences go, that I feel like that might be one of the things I consider to be the greatest difference. Is I found with prayer that there was you're kind of seeking something from a third party, maybe specifically, giving it a name. Whereas meditation, it can be more of like coming from an internal place. That's just my experience. But I would say there also is a sense of, based on what you're talking about, or internal versus external, and then intention. What your intent is, your intention for your life to be easier, or is your intention for your life to be to help you to grow and help you to evolve, if you want to look at it like that. I as I've gotten older, I've tried to look at my life in a sense of I'm not finished. I have a lot of work to do, and I would prefer to face challenges, and if they're going to help me to grow. Obviously, there's some cases where you could put yourself in kind of harm's way. I'll just say, toxic realm of other people that are going to hurt you, that don't, if you're opening yourself up to certain things. But I think, like, overall, we can be open to the things that fall in our path. So if there's something that we see that's put in our path, we can look at it like, is there a possible lesson here? Is there a chance to grow, to be stronger, to become prepared for something even greater? Because I found, like, now looking back at certain parts of my life, that those things that were put in my path that maybe were painful at the time put me in a much stronger place, emotionally, spiritually, in some cases, even physically. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty powerful that we can kind of, I guess, reevaluate how things are. We don't have to take them at face value all the time. Sometimes we can give them thought and say, okay, maybe there is something more to this than what I'm seeing right now. And I think meditation is a great tool for that. I kind of go back and forth, like you said, with using prayer and using meditation. Both, I think they both have great benefits. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I answer your question, but yeah.
Sometimes what I heard a little bit in there is almost this idea about give a man a fish, feed him for a day, and teach a man to fish and feed him for a lifetime. Almost this idea of you being prepared to face the challenges, to know how to fish, to know how to provide and nourish yourself and the people that depend on you. Yeah.
Right. And I think, like, also with maturity, like, as we get older, I'll be approaching 50 very soon.
Whoa.
Yikes.
I didn't want to reveal to the entire audience out there on the internet that we're almost 50, bro.
Yeah, but I think I'm actually happy. I'm enjoying the journey. It's not always easy, definitely, but, like, in maturity, I'm kind of realizing that that there is a lot of opportunities to grow and to, like I was saying about reevaluating, but just so many opportunities that I think there is a window there when you're growing, that it feels easy to play the victim, to look at circumstances that were, maybe dealt to you and saying, like, everything else is the problem. But I think meditation and even prayer have been, teaching me that that I do have some control, either over how I react to things, or how I'm looking at it. Because not everything is a threat necessarily. And we don't have to fear everything either. And I think coming out of fear is very powerful. It's not to say that there isn't things that, you know, can maybe put us out of our comfort zone, but like when I see an opportunity to get out of my comfort zone, I'm more likely now to try to do
Yeah.
that. I'm
Lean
like,
into that
is it,
discomfort.
and
Yeah.
even doing this podcast, like, or this episode here, I'm just like, okay, is this something I've done before? No. Is this something that could potentially help me to grow? Yes. Is this a little out of my comfort zone? Absolutely. I'm not on camera a lot. I'm usually behind because you know, I'm a director, producer normally, or a writer, so I'm not usually on camera. But is this a chance to grow, and is this a chance to maybe help others? And that's kind of why I'm here today, and I think why you and I saw the importance of doing something like this.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you so much because in the realm of social media nowadays, everything that's out there is a carefully curated version of the lifestyle that people want others to see. And when
Mm-hmm.
we jump on now, there's no editing this. If I flub my words, if I say something out of turn, if I speak out of ignorance, it's live. There's no undoing it. So there's a trust and acceptance that whatever words or communications that we want to share in this conversation, they're just going to naturally come. And we have to have some level of confidence in ourselves that we can communicate at a level that is understandable to the person we're speaking to. And then anybody third party that's going to listen to this conversation, we want them to derive some kind of value from it. And what is the value that we're looking to create on some level? Well, we can talk about meditation as a process. We can talk about leaning into your comfort zone, and no, leaning into the discomfort and
Right.
stepping out of the comfort zone.
Right.
And right there is sort of a key component. And one of the other things that you also mentioned, that I don't want to, gloss over it too quickly, was you talked a little bit about the awareness that you had to respond instead of reacting. You talked a little bit about fear. And what I noticed, and this is just me personally, I noticed this because I work with other men, and a lot of the guys that I've worked with in the past are first responders. Some of them have even been veterans. And I notice as men, it's much more comfortable from an emotional standpoint to tap into certain emotions like anger. And the reason that I say that is because that's been my personal experience. It's also been my experience from others. And additionally, I see it as a reflection of the current state of masculinity. In some ways, people talk about toxic masculinity. And I think when people refer to toxic masculinity, I do believe they refer not to masculinity, because masculinity in itself is not inherently toxic, in the same way femininity isn't toxic, but it can be,
Mm-hmm.
the same way masculinity can be. And why it gets a bad rap, I think, is because in a lot of ways, the modern man is less apt and capable of dealing with a lot of the challenges of the modern day, because he doesn't necessarily have the support system that we used to have years ago. Meaning,
Right.
if a man was going through emotions of sadness or fear, or confusion or loss and grief, he would have his buddies within the tribe to kind of share that with. But fast forward, the modern day man and the nuclear family is kind of isolated, even in a city of millions of people. And so it's this idea that for me to weep or cry or express sadness, or let's say somebody does something, my wife does something, and I'm afraid of something, I wouldn't necessarily be so comfortable to express fear. I might feel more, instead of me saying, hey, that thing you did made me afraid that you're going to leave me, I might be more apt and ready to say, hey, you know, where were you? And maybe act in a way that's more aggressive. And that might be more comfortable, because men nowadays, and again, I'm going to speak in more general terms, men nowadays seem to feel reluctant to share or express emotions that might make them seem less masculine or more vulnerable. And can you talk a little bit about what it means to understand the nature of what's socially acceptable for men as far as behavior is concerned? How we kind of curate our own responses to make sure that it fits into an appropriate and acceptable response. And then maybe talk a little bit about the difference between responding or reacting to external circumstances, and then recognizing if maybe we're triggered or we're activated by something, and then what it means to kind of practice awareness around that reaction, and then to choose a response that maybe is a little more honest. Maybe the response is, hey, when you did that, it made me feel upset, like that you didn't, I know you probably didn't mean to intend this, but maybe you made me feel like you didn't care about how I felt, or it made me feel like you um, didn't really care too much about my feelings on a certain thing. Can you talk a little bit about what it means to practice awareness around a reaction, to choose a response, and what it means to really be brave enough to really express what you're really feeling in a vulnerable way?
Right. Well, you have two situations. You have the daily talk, I'll just call it self-talk. And some of that comes from our background. It could be something a friend said when we were growing up. It could be our parents, their lectures, or, something they said to us or yelled at us when we were younger, that stuck with us. And the truth is, that in a lot of cases, it's something we had to own, we had to agree with, or otherwise it would be very easy to just kind of have it come off the shoulders like a duck, water off a duck's back. But yeah, I think on some level we have to either believe it, or it was said so many times that we started to believe it. And then that can become the self-talk, or it could be something current that somebody says. So I think when these situations happen, ourselves included, when we're, saying, oh, you're a dummy, or, oh, you can't accomplish that, or the things we say to ourselves, it's a matter of becoming aware that those things are happening. And then also asking yourself, is this true? Do I really believe this? And then you'll find in most cases you don't believe it, but you've just held on to it.
Yeah.
You may partially believe it, but like I think in identifying it and realizing, well, it's all perspective anyway.
Yeah.
I don't want to believe it, so I'm going to gain power over that. Well, how could you gain power over it? By speaking the new truth that you want. So in some cases, I'll find myself, no, I'm not stupid. And I'm not talking to myself necessarily in the mirror, but I may be countering that in my mind, like, no, that's ridiculous. It could be as easy as just saying in your mind, like, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to entertain that thought, and moving on. And in some cases, I can think of something that happened more recently where maybe someone was projecting something, their own insecurities on me. And so I felt a little attacked. And so I had to, at some point, ask myself, do I believe what this person is saying? What is, I may be asking, why is this person saying this to me? Do I believe this? No. Well, that was first. I was like, okay, I don't believe what this person's saying. I don't feel that way about myself. So no, I'm not going to buy into that. But then I thought, well, maybe this person is feeling that way about themselves, but isn't ready to address it with themselves. So this is kind of a practice session for them, so I'm going to take what they're giving me and I'm going to say, no, I'm not going to accept that. And that takes time. I mean, that is not easy to do every time. I've had practice of, and if that had happened a year ago, I wouldn't have been able to do that. But yeah, I think some of it is just counteracting our own thoughts and the thoughts of others, people's expectations on us. Yeah. I think a lot of it is very relationship oriented, but
yeah. And you referred to you even like with your parents, referring to how we were raised and conditioned sometimes informs the reactions that we have as adults. And so far as this idea, like, if you say something critical of me, I may respond in a way that I responded when I was younger to protect myself from the criticism or scrutiny of the people that I live with. And it just might have been a protective mechanism. And understanding that is the only way to really kind of undo it. But you also, which is really interesting, was you talked about the internal monologue. you talked about, you like you saying, you're not necessarily looking in the mirror and speaking to yourself, but even with mouth closed, as we sit here, if I sit here for just a few seconds, even, I can focus on my breathing and tap into a meditation. But for me, that internal monologue is constant unless I'm making a concerted effort to. I wouldn't say that I make an effort to quiet it down. What I do is I make an effort to become more aware of what I'm experiencing, and that gives me the opportunity to allow the voice to quiet down. And that voice inside can often come back up and continue to speak. But when I'm aware that it is communicating, I can just kind of, as a metaphor that's popularly used, like a cloud in the sky, just allow it to be there. I'm not trying to turn my thoughts off, but I am raising awareness and getting some separation from myself and the thought to recognize that that thought is not a part of me. It's just a thought, just like a cloud in the sky is a sky. It may block the sun for a little while, and we may not feel the warmth or see the light of the sun. But once that cloud or that thought continues on, then that sun comes out. It's still there. It's always been there. It was only obscured by the thought. And so this idea of like, what are thoughts? Where do they come from? What do they mean? Is a far more important question than how should I react based on the information that was presented in the way that I reacted. Meaning, if a lot of our reactions are preconceived on this level of conditioning from childhood, this idea of practicing awareness simply allows us, like you suggested, to be aware of the fact that when someone says something or does something, let it kind of pass through those gates. Is it true? Is it valid? Is it a projection of the person that's speaking? Is it really something that it says about me? And one of the examples that I found great, beneficial to understanding the idea of truth, the subjective truth versus the absolute truth, is this idea, like we talked about the mouse, and the idea that the mouse, one person would see the mouse and they would be like, oh, that's a cute little mouse, Mickey Mouse. Someone else would see the mouse and they'd shriek and jump on a table and run out of the room. And my dog might go and hunt and want to eat that mouse. And all those three realities about a mouse are true. They're all truths, subjective to the dog, the person who's scared, and the person who thinks it's cute. The absolute truth is that it's just a mouse. And if I'm the person that's scared of the mouse, I may be able to feel my reaction, this visceral fear, my blood pressure rise, my adrenaline and cortisol go through the roof. Feel that, recognize the reality of it, and see that, okay, just because I'm scared does not necessarily mean that I'm under this great threat of being killed. Maybe the truth is I can recognize this mouse is not going to hurt me and really kind of confront that fear a little bit. And so it becomes this idea that the truth is not just the individual truth, but it's a version of what the individual is experiencing. And if we can apply that to ourselves, if somebody says something, it might insult us, but we might want to stop for a second and really reevaluate that reaction and say, hey, did I really get insulted? Were they really trying to hurt me? Or was that just my preconceived, preconditioned response based upon my life experience?
And as we're coming up, we see other people reacting to a mouse a certain way, and so we may adopt that for ourselves. I mean, it is a good chance to bring up programming, because I think, like, on some level we are programmed through our experiences, and now, like you were talking about, what it means to be a man and in this day and age, or a woman, and it's always changing. But we live in an information age where, we're bombarded with thoughts, ideas, images, which can be very evasive. And so is our brain fog from too much exposure? Is our triggered mentality from too much interruption? I'll just call it regurgitated news. Because a lot of times, like, if you're watching a show where two newscasters, or it's like a news program, but they're interrupting each other, and that's all you're watching. You're watching this news program every day, and it may get your heart rate up. It might get you really excited. It might feel like a great way to start your day. But what is happening is you may be learning a behavior through watching that show, of interrupting, of not listening. So everything that we take into our body, food, you've heard it with food and beverages, but content as well, like what we're taking into our bodies, with content, movie. I love movies. I'm a movie person. I'm a screenwriter. But as a screenwriter, I try to look at what I'm putting out there. Like, do I want to put another, let's just say, college, a college party movie out there? Is that something that is in my attention or in my wheelhouse? Like, at this point, is this something I want to put out there? I think about those things now. I didn't necessarily when I was younger, but my point is that everything that we consume, we have to be careful of, because we do become what we consume. We do.
I think that's a beautiful way to raise awareness. I think a lot of people people are aware of the implied dangers of social media. I'm not, when I say aware, I mean we don't really know the full spectrum of the effect that this new technology that's come into inception during our lives is having. Mm-hmm. But we've spoken at length about the potential of this technology, because it's the very reason that we're doing this as a live stream. We're doing this as a live stream partially to open up the conversation, utilizing the current technology to have conversations that provide and create value so that people can understand the use of these technologies can be explored, and mm-hmm. we can use them to experiment. In a lot of ways, the corporations have found the lowest hanging fruit. They've found that the dopamine response, or the ability to get people addicted to their products of scrolling or purchasing things through social media, has been the use of certain tactics that tap into the primal parts of the brain that respond to the reward centers. And the awareness of this can put us at an advantage. The unawareness of this can be devastating, meaning people are suffering from mental health issues at rates that are unprecedented, because of the fact that in a lot of ways mental health has been compromised specifically by the use of technology. This idea of the grass always being greener on the other side, this idea of creating an environment of envy, jealousy, greed, materialism, competition through the use of social media has become kind of and again, this is not an aware and conscious process. A teenage girl is not scrolling her Instagram and thinking to herself that she feels inadequate. She's simply seeing somebody else on vacation while she feels a little overweight and stuck in her room, and she feels like she's not living her best life. And so that comparison is happening on a subconscious level, and it's creating self-consciousness and insecurity, and therefore that is informing this reaction and the exposure to digesting this kind of content on a regular basis is happening.
And FOMO is real, by the way. I've experienced
FOMO's totally
it.
Real. I experience it myself. I can be caught working or have plans with somebody, and my siblings or friends could be out doing something, and damn, I wish I didn't even see that they were singing karaoke at the fundraiser. I want to be there with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's real.
But to live in the age that we live with technology, there is the blessing, there is the curse, and then there's the realization of, is this particular part of it something that's making us more human or less human? Is it making us more empathetic or less empathetic? And that's, yes, I think, where we really need to start looking at it like that, because money, dollars, it's great that people are making a living, and there's new job opportunities and things like that. But at what cost? I think we need to start looking at what cost. It's not a means to an end anymore. It's at what cost.
I love it.
On a human level. So,
yeah. And the benefits of technology, the benefits of the convenience of technology. I'll use one example. talking about meditation, talking about cooking as a meditation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talking about everything, you know, even back to the real base level of meditation, talking about things like chopping wood or carrying water. Well, what are you doing when you're chopping wood and carrying water? You're chopping wood and carrying water. A lot of
Right.
times when people are chopping wood and carrying water, they're thinking about yesterday and tomorrow, and she said that and he said that, and this idea of being immersed into the moment, whether you're washing dishes or folding laundry, it doesn't make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But this idea that we are engaging in behaviors and we're so lost in thought that we can't really immerse ourselves into that behavior because we're living in a culture where we're constantly used to being stimulated by something on some level. Almost that the lack of dopamine creates anxiety in the same way that not having the drug that you want creates a withdrawal or an anxiety. It's the same physiological reaction on some level. And so how can we integrate technology in a way that we can find it useful? I would like to think that the conversation we're having is one that is of value because it presents a conversation about utilizing this technology in the face of what it means to practice greater awareness, as opposed to unawareness, where the conditioned response would be to just scroll what somebody else is creating, as opposed to creating more awareness and spaciousness where you can just relax into the isness of the way things are in relative terms to, oh no, I need something external to look at and scroll through to stimulate me because right now the present moment is not enough. This conscious breath is not enough. I need more. I need likes. I need validation. I need dopamine. I need excitement. I need adrenaline. And this idea that we're not enough as we are, I believe, is highly trained into this idea of social media. Can you maybe talk to me a little bit about how you can see the use of this technology that can allow us to incorporate greater awareness and maybe even use it as a tool to practice greater awareness, as opposed to the opposite, where the corporations and social media companies have hijacked the algorithm on some level to say, I don't care if their mental health is suffering, as long as they use our product for more time and we make more money, that's all we care about. Can you talk a little bit about how we can understand the use of technology
I
and
think definitely
integrate it in a healthy way?
Yeah, I definitely believe in mission statements, and I believe in reminders like we're doing right now, that we never get to a place where social media and online is the only thing. If it's not complementing real life, if we're not still getting out, and it's not encouraging us to get out, then it's a problem. If it's complementing us to appreciate things that are out there, and to, like, you see a guy with Instagram, going to different restaurants and trying the food. Hopefully that inspires us to go out and try the food for ourselves. Or if we see nature, like somebody posting a beautiful nature video of a bird, hopefully that makes us want to go out and look at nature for ourselves. But I don't, if it's only, if you're just going to watch a guy eat, well, I don't know that in itself is valuable. So I think, like, we all need to be encouraging each other to experience all the facets of life, all the parts of what it is to be human, to walk in nature, to explore the world around us, to be in relationships. If our friends are on a TV show that we watch every day, then we're not really living, are we? TV shows are great, and they're entertainment, and they can make us laugh, and they can provide us with insight. Movies can get our dopamines up and have us on the edge of our seats. But if they're keeping us from living our own lives, and finding our own excitement, then what is it to be just vicarious all the time? It's to be dead, I think, on some level.
That's a
So,
very Matrix.
so I think it's a starting point. It's got to be a launch pad. If it's more than a launch pad, it's not working.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I totally understand where you're coming from. It's this idea that we can observe how to do something, yet we shouldn't use that as a proxy for not experiencing life in a firsthand by participating directly in it. So it can be, to your point, we can watch something about experiencing nature. Maybe watch somebody go whitewater rafting, and that's exciting. But should it be something where we're constantly looking to live vicariously through the screen, or is it something that should inspire us to then step outside and actually live and interact and integrate? And that's kind of the key, is like, we're in this matrix-like world where you and I can have a conversation in real time on through screen like we're doing now, but we could also have it in real life and record it, or we could just have it in real life and not record it. And what's the benefit of utilizing the technology to have the conversation? What's the benefit of utilizing it to share the information, to provide value, and not for someone to just watch it, but to then maybe understand, okay, yeah, let me see what piques my interest, but then let me make a proactive step to participate in life. Or let me practice awareness around my monkey mind, how it's constantly going. Let me practice awareness around my reaction when someone says or something, or life doesn't work out the way I want it to. And then, am I going to just hear that and then clap back and get aggravated or become passive aggressive? Or am I actually going to say, oh, wait, I listened to that podcast with Andy and Eddie about mansplaining meditation, and I just became aware that somebody said something or something happened, and I got really, really reactive. My blood pressure went up. I started to get angry and feel myself feeling insulted, and then I was able to stop and practice some awareness around that.
Right. And going back to what we were talking about before, like, not necessarily talking in the mirror. You may want to talk in the mirror in the beginning for that awareness. You may want to have a mantra of what you were saying before about manifesting something. What do I want to be in the world? And what is the new truth? What is the truth that I want in my life? Is it to help people? Is it to be in better shape? And speaking health over your life, speaking health over your friends, praying for those things as well, like praying for someone who who's going through some challenges. Not necessarily that stuff just dissipates or goes away in some cases. In some cases, we got to know what our friends need. We may not want to tell them necessarily, but we may want them to see them come out of the other side better, stronger, faster. I could just keep going, but and like, so, but yeah, like back to the awareness thing. And I think also in the beginning, certainly to take those breaths, when we feel triggered or when we're upset by something someone said, taking that moment and recognizing, why am I feeling this way? Like if I'm triggered or I'm upset by something someone said, why is it that I'm feeling this way? Is it because of something I watched on the news? Is it because of something that my parents taught me? Is it something that I don't believe? There's so many different ideas and things that people say that their intention they weren't trying to hurt me, but that we react in such a way that we take, everything personally. I definitely can say I've been thin-skinned in my life, in some certain cases. I've been a people pleaser, and I know that certain things that I've speculated that someone they were trying to hurt me in some way, was absolutely nothing. They were just making conversation and making a segue into something else. And I took it personally, and that's my problem, not theirs. I need to deal with that. I think, like, when it comes to personal trauma, like obviously you reach a certain point where maybe there needs to be therapy, but at least what we're talking about, where you have a person where, the starting point can be meditation. I would say if we're suppressing it, it needs to be addressed, right?
Yeah. Not only that, but I think not only if you're suppressing it, but even to the reaction you just spoke about, like let's say someone does say something and we notice that we're triggered. And guys, for those listening out there that aren't aware of what we're talking about, I'll simply put it this way. If you start to notice when you're interacting with people that someone might say something or do something, or something happens in a situation where you start to maybe notice that you're less comfortable and more anxious, you might just want to pay attention to see if there's a somatic reaction. And by somatic, I simply mean, does the felt body, are you feeling a sensation? And it doesn't have to be pain. It doesn't, your stomach doesn't have to be in knots. Sometimes I find if I'm angry, I get like a tightening around my throat. Or if I'm angry, it gets a little wider. Or
My
if I'm
ears will sometimes feel like they're heating up. It's funny. I think
sure.
that's where the steam thing comes from. But yeah.
Yeah. And those kind of anecdotal, kind of like, hyperbolic cartoon things are meant to kind of communicate some of
Mhm.
those emotions. Like he's so mad, steam is coming out of his ears, and he
Right.
gets so angry. And so it's this idea that when we do feel these things, which we all do sometimes, to practice awareness around it and just like notice, like, wait, man, without verbalizing it, you could be in a room and someone could have said something, and you could simply just notice, wow, that's really upsetting to me, and really to try to pay attention to where you feel that in the body. And as a matter of fact, maybe we can right now in real time. I mean, we're coming up on it's over 45 minutes. Maybe if you don't mind, can we maybe just share a few conscious breaths, and maybe you can be my kind of my test subject, and just to kind of show other men out there of what a basic simple meditation is. And for this one, I would just like to maybe walk you through a guided meditation of just 4 breaths,
Mhm.
and that's simply what I would call. I would offer that and describe that as a tool that you or anybody could use at any time if they're feeling like there's some kind of issue. So maybe start by just putting a hand on your belly, your right hand over your heart, and your left hand on your belly, if you can do that.
Okay.
All right. And the reason you put your right hand over your belly is your right hand over your heart is because that'll just remind you to kind of like tap into that heart center. And your left hand on your belly is where a lot of. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah.
And your left hand over your belly is just that's the area in your body where we're connected in utero, and so it's a very sensitive area that has a lot of nerve endings. And just close your eyes. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a breathing exercise. It's going to be a double inhale through the nose. And the first inhale that we're going to make through the nose is going to fill our belly. So with the hand we have on our belly, we're going to make that belly button rise away from the spine. And then the second inhale through the nose is going to make the chest expand. And if we want to see what that looks like, I'm just going to widen my screen a little bit. So you can see that the first inhale, ready? If you
Yeah, I'll
want
do
to
it again.
inhale,
Mhm.
yeah. And what we'll do is we'll inhale through the nose once, fill the belly, and then inhale and fill the chest. But we'll do that in one sequence. Then we're going to hold the breath for
Mhm.
3, 2, 1. And then we're going to exhale like we're blowing out smoke
Okay.
through pursed lips.
Oh,
Okay?
okay.
So I'm going to do that 4 times. So exhale completely. Double inhale through the nose. Belly, chest, hold. 3, 2, 1, and blow it out like smoke. Double inhale through the nose. Belly, chest, hold. 3, 2, 1. Double inhale through the nose. Belly, chest, hold. 3, 2, 1. Exhale like smoke. Last one. Double inhale. Belly, chest. Hold. 3, 2, 1. And exhale it like smoke. Nice and easy. And now, sometimes those few breaths can just be enough to reset the nervous system. What it does is it tricks the body from going into fight or flight mode back into parasympathetic rest and digest mode. And what that does is it actually tricks our nervous system into just chilling out. And so I find sometimes if I'm in an environment or a situation where I might be getting triggered, it's a high stress environment, it's very chaotic, there's a lot of things going on, I notice sometimes I could be talking to someone and they'll have no idea. I'll simply go and hold it. Mm-hmm. And then I'll sometimes slowly release it through my nose to not be so obvious. If I have the time to take and do a few grounding breaths, I'll do what I just did. Full on hands, breath, blowing it out like smoke, and really just like as a ritual, as a practice that I can use to drop in. Mm-hmm. And so that's a little tool and tactic that you can just use anytime you're in an environment or a situation where you're feeling a little overwhelmed. It's a great opportunity to just have a tool in your pocket that you can access to use to chill yourself out, ground yourself, and just take back your power instead of allowing someone who might be in a very emotional state and saying things because they're angry or frustrated or scared, and then you're reacting and they're drawing you into that energy and stealing that power from you like an energy vampire. Having a tool in your pocket, like knowing how to breathe in a very nourishing and healthy and grounding way, is a tool that you can use to bring yourself back, to take your power back, and to not allow yourself to get completely hijacked and taken away by your emotions, your reactions, your childhood conditioning, all the things we discussed, from early childhood conditioning that can sometimes hijack us and make us feel very uncomfortable. It's a really powerful tool. So keep that one in your pocket, people.
Definitely. I was going to say, you and I were talking about poetry not too long ago, and I was thinking of, being back in, let's just say let's say high school, coming at poetry with, maybe being in a negative headspace, or being, even you could say, as far as like frequencies go and everything, you could say you might be in a place of hate. And the great thing about creating and journaling can be creating as well, even if you don't consider yourself a creative person. Just expressing yourself is creating. Like we were saying, just like manifesting something in the mirror or a mantra is creating. But I could speak as a writer that in the past, like something as simple as a poem, trying to come up with the rhyme or the different rhythm of the lines, was to organize my thoughts, was to get a handle of maybe feelings or an experience that is close, was close.
Yeah.
And putting some sort of organization to it, I was able to get a handle of it. And the beauty was, in most cases, what started as hate or what started as maybe negative tended to turn to a positive. I think because it's inherent in all of us.
Right.
We do want things to move in a more positive direction. So I found that poems that even started negative would somehow always have a, let's just say, climax or turning point, and that led to a more positive ending, or maybe that's where our happy endings come from in movies. I don't know, but like it is inherent in us. And so I think with meditation too, it is to organize our thoughts in a very similar way, maybe not, physically, but to, in our head, gain some sort of organization of thoughts. And in some cases, dissipating those thoughts or letting them just go by because they're not important, because they're either false or they don't do us any good.
Maybe they don't even belong to us. Maybe the
Right.
thoughts that we're having are thoughts that were important to our parents for specific and certain reasons that made sense. Maybe they were adaptive, evolutionary mechanisms built into our survival where people would say, well, you better be skeptical of these people because they're coming to take your, and again, a lot of these reactions or inclinations that we have to react to certain things come as a result of conditioning that happened to us, or not even early on in childhood. We
Right.
can even receive this conditioning from multiple generations previous. If our great grandparents survived traumatic events and they became very stoic, and to the point where they had to protect themselves to survive in a really challenging and cruel world, that can sometimes inform this intergenerational trauma in which our parents or grandparents who were subject to certain conditionings, then we kind of inherit that by proxy through the bloodline, through this survival mechanisms. There's proof that even babies in utero during wartime and famine grow up to be quite different people personality wise based on that conditioning. Even in utero, the stress in utero translates from the womb into the mother, into the child. So this idea that maybe our reactions don't even belong to us. Maybe my anger comes from this conditioning that my great-great-grandfather, who was a Celtic warrior, exemplified on the hillsides of fighting some turf war. And that's where the violence and the rage comes in. It used to be violence and rage for maybe a territorial thing, and now it's violence and rage because I perceive somebody insulted me about something from the modern day, but it doesn't belong to me anymore, and it doesn't serve me anymore because taking out a sword and chopping someone's head off is no longer an appropriate way to deal with things. So if we notice ourselves in these primal reactions of violence, of rage, of anger, of venom, of attack, we have to ask ourselves, does that even belong to me? Now, it may be very useful, meaning there might come a time in one's life where there are people that actually need to respond with violence because someone's attacking their family. And that was designed in us for a reason, because there were saber-toothed tigers and there were dinosaurs that were attacking animals. And so our primal brains, our reptilian brains, they evolved to protect us from these real threats. But in the modern day, it's less about a T-Rex or a saber-toothed tiger coming after us. And it's much more about the danger of, what did that person say to me to make me feel threatened, to try to diminish who I am as a person, that made me feel attacked or in danger to the point where I'm so on edge, I want to lash out violently. And you got to really ask yourself, is that my reaction? Where does it come from? Does it still serve me? Now, if it does, it does. If you're under physical threat and you're out in the street and you got to protect your family, you got to get violent, which is what a man's job is, even in the modern day. With policing and all, it still may be your job as a man to physically protect your woman using violence. It's real. Yeah, but in the vast majority of cases, that's not the truth. The truth is we're feeling like we're being attacked, but the threat is much less. It's a threat of it's an insult or a threat to the ego. And we have to recognize, man, is that reaction going to be useful, or is it really going to be damaging? And do I have to find a way, like you were saying, to reorganize my thoughts and awareness so that I can respond to life in a healthier way? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to get into the ego another time, but yeah, definitely that comes into play with meditation quite a bit of kind of trying to remove the ego in certain cases,
or make friends with it.
Or forming friends with it.
Just becoming aware of it, because I don't know that we're going to get rid of the ego so much as we're going to have to just try to understand it in this lifetime.
Understand it. Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. Well, this has been great. Yeah.
We're coming up on an hour. So yeah, we'll wrap it up. And just to let everybody know, but first of all, thank you for tuning in to this Mansplaining Meditation episode. Thank you for tuning into the Ed Woodstock channel, and thank you for joining me and my guest, Andy Pitkin. Andrew's a good friend of mine who is well-versed on lots of subjects. And we're going to be dropping in on a regular basis to talk about a multitude of subjects that apply to what it means to be a man, a person in the modern world, but also what it means to just be a human being in this world. And the whole idea is to utilize this technology to have conversations that contribute value into this new world of technology. So if you have any suggestions, comments, questions, please put them into the comment section below. And me and Andy will talk about it, or we'll bring it up on our next episode. And be sure to like, subscribe. Andy, before we go, can you tell people a little bit about where they can find you, if maybe they want to follow you on social media or send you an email or something? Can you just maybe plug yourself?
Yeah, you can just search Andrew Pitkin. Instagram is kind of my hangout these days, but I am on Twitter and I am on Facebook as well. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Andrew Pitkin, Pitkin. And yeah, you'll find me.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, brother, for taking the time out today to have a conversation about things that maybe most men don't talk about. But I think it's important in the modern day, especially with technologies we've discussed, for men specifically, to have conversations about what it means to have awareness about their emotional world, have awareness about the ability to have these conversations, to understand themselves and each other in a world where it's becoming increasingly difficult to do so. And so thank you for tuning in and joining the conversation, and hope to see you for the next episode, which hopefully will be coming up soon.
Thanks, Eddie. This was great. And thanks, everybody, for watching.
All right,
See
pal.
you soon. Okay.
Much love to you guys. Have a good day.
Bye.